This is Stone Cold Tech Sport, and today we are taking a quick look at this ultra-wide monitor. This will be more of an overview than a review because I lack the proper equipment to do a review. Now, this is the Asus TUF VG35VQ. It is listed for $579 at Amazon at this time. And this monitor is, as its name suggests, 35 inches and uses a VA panel with a resolution of 3440 by 1440 and a refresh rate of 100 Hz. It's also a curved monitor, as most of these ultrawides are. The curve is 1800R and the display is thankfully flicker-free. The monitor stand feels well built and supports height adjustments up to 10 centimeters, along with swivel 45 degrees either way and tilt from -5 degrees to +20 degrees. The monitor features two HDMI 2.0 ports and one DisplayPort 1.2 port, along with a couple of USB 3 ports and a 3.5mm headphone jack. It's also VESA 100-100 compatible for wall mounting, and the monitor has some plastic covers which is supposed to aid in your cable management, and I think they do a pretty good job of that. The monitor has 8 different display modes, which are optimized to the type of game that you play. Included in those 8 are one sRGB and one user mode. In addition, it has some features which Asus calls Game Plus. So this is a crosshair that you can move around on your screen, or practice mode as they call it. And there's also a timer, so you know when it's time to stop gaming and get back to the real world. There's an FPS counter, which is more of a refresh rate counter, and display alignment. Also included is Shadow Boost, which is supposed to do what the name suggests, boost the shadows or make blacks gray. It also has several low blue light modes. Asus claims 100% coverage of the sRGB color space, and I have no way to confirm this, but the colors did look very good, if a little oversaturated. The monitor has support for FreeSync or Adaptive Sync, with a FreeSync range of 48 Hz to 100 Hz. I couldn't find anything official about support for low frame rate compensation or LFC. Usually, the maximum refresh rate of a monitor that supports LFC has to be 2.5 times higher than its minimum. So in this case, it would need to be 120 Hz maximum refresh rate. Then what LFC does is double the refresh rate when your frames per second drop below the FreeSync range. So in this case, below 48 Hz. Even though this monitor doesn't advertise LFC support, the monitor did double the refresh rate when frames per second dropped below the minimum refresh rate of 48 Hz. This monitor has support for LMB, which stands for Extreme Low Motion Blur, and now we run into our first problem. The wording on the Asus product page says, Asus Extreme Low Motion Blur technology enables a 1 millisecond response time together with Adaptive Sync, eliminating ghosting and tearing for sharp gaming visuals with high frame rates. After reading that, you would be forgiving for thinking that LMB would work with FreeSync, however it does not. As soon as you enable LMB, the monitor disables Adaptive Sync, and when you try to enable Adaptive Sync, the monitor disables LMB. So there's the first drawback or compromise of this monitor. I tried this with both 5700 XT and 2070 Super, and it was the same result for both. I also tried with HDMI with the AMD card, but same story there as well. Apparently, for them to work together, Asus would advertise it as LMB Sync and not just LMB. The LMB feature does work quite well though, and you can adjust the pulse width between 10 to 100. It would be nice to have it work with FreeSync, but I guess at the budget end of ultrawide monitors, you have to make some compromises. Moving on, the monitor also has support for HDR10, but don't expect to get sunburn from this display. Asus lists maximum brightness at 300 nits, which isn't even enough for HDR 400 certification, but at this price I wasn't expecting anything else either. Now we run into yet another compromise, so FreeSync and HDR does not work together, so when you enable FreeSync, you disable HDR, or when you enable HDR, you disable FreeSync. Also, this monitor is not G-Sync compatible, but you can still use FreeSync with an NVIDIA GPU if you use DisplayPort. I tested this with my 1070 and 2070 Super, and it works fine. The monitor does exhibit some ghosting, even with trace-free at max setting, which is essentially the overdrive setting if I'm not mistaken, although I personally didn't notice any ghosting while gaming. And that pretty much concludes my overview of this monitor. personally, I'm happy with it and will keep it. The resolution and screen real estate is awesome, and 100 Hz for me is plenty. I did try to overclock it, by the way, but yeah, any increase in refresh rate would cause the monitor to display an error with out of range, so no luck there. I hope this was somewhat helpful. Thank you very much for watching, and farewell for now.